Tomorrow's Scottish budget should be used to instigate fundamental change to society through tax reform. That's the message from 60 organisations, including think tanks, charities and trade unions, in an open letter to the 5 main Scottish political parties. One of the signatories to the letter is Ruth Boyle, who's Policy and Campaigns Manager at the Poverty Alliance. She's with us now. Morning to you.
Morning, Gary.
So explain to us what it is you would like to see.
Well, people in Scotland believe in looking out for each other, but our political leaders aren't living up to those values. So the letter that's been sent to the leader of Scotland's 5 main political parties today and signed, as you say, by 60 diverse organisations has a simple message that our critical national priorities, such as efforts to tackle poverty, cannot be sacrificed due to a lack of resources. So we see the publication of tomorrow's budget as being a pivotal moment for fundamental change. We need to see genuine budget bravery to raise the investment we know is needed for our social safety net. Ultimately, our politicians know that there's a huge hole in the Scottish budget, yet there's a lack of consensus and collaboration about how to fairly and sustainably raise the additional resources that's needed. And that's short-sighted. So amid those short and long-term fiscal challenges, our letter calls for the kick-starting of a series of fair tax reforms that will progress the fairer, greener Scotland we all want to see.
Well, explain to us what you mean by fair tax reforms. I mean, Shona Robson yesterday wouldn't be drawn on whether the government's planning to create a new higher rate tax band, although the speculation has been rife that that might be the case. Is that the kind of reform that you would want?
Yeah, so short term, we're saying that it's crucial that tomorrow's budget builds on the progressive changes that the Scottish Government has taken to date, with further measures to ensure that those with the broadest financial shoulders contribute more through existing tax levers such as income tax. And that's why we've welcomed the proposed change around a new tax band. But critically, these organisations have also come together to say that the Scottish budget process must be used to kickstart a wider series of tax reforms that moves beyond tweaks. So that means things like a cross-party process to replace our regressive system of council tax, and also supporting fundamental reform of the devolved tax system within this Parliament, including to target undertaxed wealth. Obviously, some of these changes will take time to deliver, whereas some of these options could be implemented now. But we're clear that we urgently need all of our political leaders to look seriously at this range of options.
Well, the argument goes that there's a limited tax base in Scotland, and when you talk about higher earners, there's a limited number of those as well. So is there the danger, as some have suggested, that by raising more and more taxes that becomes a disincentive?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons why people choose to build their lives in Scotland, and that goes beyond tax rates. Polling also undermines the argument that tax isn't popular. So we see polling from the IPPR Scotland that shows that 60% of people support tax increases, even if their own taxes were to rise, if that's to be invested in the social safety net. But ultimately, if we're to maintain and build upon differential rates of tax, it's vital that people feel the benefits of that higher tax in terms of stronger public services and the opportunities that they have locally. So we need to talk about the benefits that social investment brings to all of us. But also, this is why we're pointing to the importance of diversifying our taxes so that we move beyond over-reliance on taxing income to target under-taxed wealth, starting with the fundamental reform of our council tax system.
Well, should we also, when council tax, of course, is going to be frozen next year. We've had that announcement from the Scottish Government. Many argue that actually what that does is benefit those in the higher income bands, because everyone gets a freeze in those circumstances. Shona Robson said universal benefits such as prescription charges, university tuition fees, early years childcare would remain free of charge. Again, is there an argument here, as you're talking about those in higher tax bands paying more, is there an argument for those people also paying for these free services?
I think as the cost of living crisis continues to bite, it can't be right that the Scottish Government are prioritising a council tax freeze that disproportionately benefits wealthier households. So analysis from the Fraser of Allender Institute shows that freeze is worth around 55 pence per week to low-income households at times when they're struggling to stay afloat. So we would disagree with the Scottish Government's framing of this as a cost of living measure. I think it's disappointing to see the consideration of further changes to the public services that we all rely on in order to fund a policy that's ultimately going to benefit those higher earners. I think there's an ongoing debate, obviously, when resources are tight about that universalism versus targeted services. And I think there's an argument for progressive universalism, so starting with those who need it most in the context of some services. But we also need to remember that many existing services are yet universal. So we see the impact of social care charging within the context of increasing destitution for disabled people. We need to consider the impact of poverty-related stigma. Do we have the data to adequately target? And also we know that when services are designed for poor people, they're often poor services.
Well, look, thanks very much for speaking to us this morning. We will see where we are tomorrow once we get the budget details from Shona Robertson. But thank you very much. Ruth Boyle there, who is Policy and Campaigns Manager at the Poverty Alliance.